Okay guys, in this video we're going to be looking at possibly the best thing that Games Workshop ever made.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay guys, that might have been a bit of a hyperbolic title, but this is the modular movement tray from Games Workshop. This was obviously discontinued along with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, so this is probably one of the last ones I'll ever get my hands on, and it's already been opened. I grabbed one of these just after the announcement that it was all going away, and then a friend of mine passed me some bits and pieces as well. So the reason why I've gone and dug this out is because I've got another 20 Dwarf Spearmen to put on bases, and then I've got another unit of 20 that I'm going to be working on soon for my Dwarf army. As well as that, Johnny from Johnny Watson Gaming, who's going down the Oathmark rabbit hole with me, needs another tray, and he asked if I had anything spare. So I'm going to build up a couple of these now, just to show you how nicely this worked. Probably going to use some of these open parts that I've already got. So the beauty of this was that if you've played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, you'll know you didn't necessarily have to have set sizes. I've got a few of these kicking around which are 7 wide for my old Chaos Warriors, so they could fight hordes of 20mm stuff. I've got a lot that are 4 wide, which seemed to be the style at the time of at one point in Warhammer. So basically, yeah, you could have your formation any which way round. But obviously for Oathmark, we're going to be wanting these 5x4, which is handy because this sheet here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 long. And as you can see, it's already marked out with 25mm squares on this side, which in Warhammer would have been large bases, stuff like beastmen and chunky sort of creatures. And on this side, we've got 20mm squares, which was your humans, your Ungors like I'm painting at the moment, bits and pieces like that. So this kit came out, and I've been using this for years, but this kit came out before MDF laser cutters were as commonplace as they are now, so you couldn't really get MDF movement trays. Your option was pretty much either this, or I used to use sheets of plasticard with old bits of sprue around the edges, or yeah, people made cardboard ones. And this was before sort of Mantic kicked off, and you could get the sort of movement trays from there, and all the other wonderful things you can get now. And the joy of it was, if you weren't going to sort of build one from scratch, you could just use a standard knife, and that's all you require to make this. So because the squares are already pre-marked, I'm just going to go down here just a couple of times. You don't even have to cut all the way through, because that will snap perfectly neatly on the edge. And keep hold of that for other kinds of bases as well. This bit of the kit was going to be used for a Armies on Parade display, I believe. So it was all cut up, ready to be used as that, because this is actually quite good stuff for construction, especially as it glues with plastic glue. So same again down the middle here. Perfect. And there's my 2 trays for 20 guys. Now this is the bit my other half hates when she used to hear me making these. Is I can just take my knife and I'm just going to run it down the edge like this. All we're doing is removing any excess plastic from the tops and bottoms, just so when we put the edges on it'll fit that bit neater. So yeah, there's my 2 sheets cut out. No measuring required, no special tools. Next we want some corners. So I'm going to want 4 corners per one. If I'm making these smaller than a full unit, I will only put 2 corners on, just on the front like this, and then I would leave the back free, so you could still line up models on the back if you wanted to. But seeing as these are going to be big blocks of 20, I'm going to put all the corners on. So I need 2 more corners here. Even the sprue from this kit is really good, because you can clip off all these nodules and everything off the sides, and then you can sharpen up the end to little spikes, and then these make excellent sort of archer stakes and things like that, with very little work. And obviously they're plastic, so they glue onto bases quite nicely. So yeah, it's quite a good extra use for these. And whenever is a bit of sort of plastic rod not a useful thing, so I even keep hold of the sprues, because it's rare that you find a round sprue. So there is all sorts you can do with that. Okay, so now we need some edge pieces. I think one of these edge pieces should be the perfect fit for the long edge. I'm going to have to make some cuts for the shorter edges. Okay, so I'm going to start on one of these corners. I'm just going to use my knife first to snip off where they were joined onto the sprues, and then remove those little mould lines at the bottom there. And then I'm going to use this little emery board just to take a little bit of the material away from these corners. And I've got some plastic glue here. This is Revel Contactor. This is my go-to plastic glue. And I'm making sure this is going up on this top bit, as well as on the bottom there. Get that snug in. And we'll do the same with the long bit now. Remove those, clean that up. Actually, I'm going to do another corner first. Once again, we're just going to squidge that all around, make sure everything, all the contact points are nice and gluey. Get them prepared alongside. Oh, and don't forget, we want a little dab of glue on each of these ends. And there we have it, it just sits on the bottom like that. Oh, such a good kit. Okay, so I'm up to the last slide on the second tray, and I've used my 1, 2 offcut inches. I've got one little section left. So I've used my last little section, I've cut this to size. Oh, look at that. Feels good. So there's my first 2 trays, nice and easy. Leave them to set up, make sure everything is exactly where it needs to be, because obviously this is all polystyrene with the plastic cement. You've got a little bit of movement time on these. So another interesting thing about these is that if you've done this properly, you will have a 25mm base, but then you'll also have this little lip in there. So this means that once you've got your bases in, you do have a little bit of shuffle room. Now, so although that's not perfect when you're playing something like Kings of War, maybe when the exact dimensions need to be perfect, it does mean that when you've got a model that's got sand on it, or slightly overlapping bits and pieces on the bases, or even just slightly outstretched weapons and such, that you've got that little bit of wiggle room across this distance, just around the edges, to manoeuvre them if need be. Of course, you could file down the edge of the original bit of plastic if you wanted a little bit, and I have done in the past when I've wanted specifically a little bit tighter tray. But not all bases are made equal. For instance, my EM4 dwarves, which are some of the dwarves that'll be using these trays, their bases aren't quite square. And even if we take the time to remove some of these little mould lines off the edges, they are a lot tighter in there. And as you can see, that wiggle room has all but evaporated. Another cool thing to note is that the way I've got these laid out now was something I saw done. I think Manchester Games Workshop used to do this with some of their stuff. It means that if you've got spearmen, or if you want archers stakes, for instance, up the front row, you can use an extra layer of this stuff, and you could put that in there, or some spare bases or something like that, and you can have a built-up section here. So it's part of the tray, but it's not. But it's level with the tops of the model's bases, and you can decorate that. And it means that when you are coming into combat with something, you've got that little bit of extra room. If I said, like I said, you had weapons overhanging, or cavalry with spears out, something like that, you can still sort of face to face with another unit without worrying about that sort of mesh, which I thought was kind of cool, but not something I've ever really used. So when my friend gave me that last pack, he also handed me a whole bunch of random old trays, and this is some of them. So they all had bits missing and were a bit cobbled together, with different levels of usefulness. I suppose these are designed for units on 20mm bases. I'm not sure what this is. This is a strange size thing. There was a handful of others as well, but because I could spot what they were designed for, I've left them. There was even a few of the old Games Workshop sort of single piece ones, including the old hack of getting the narrow single piece one and the wider single piece one and gluing them in to get a larger tray. I'm thinking this is probably for something that is 6 small models across. Anyway, when I was complaining about the pile of random bases that I ended up with, and I messaged Johnny about it, he challenged me to make something useful out of them. So yeah, I left that one as a 5x4 for the little guys. Gave it a new corner. I reclaimed. I took the end off this one and managed to graft on a couple of extra bits. Some of them are a little bit broken, but I've kind of managed where I could and made sure that's nice and flat now. And this one is the 3 panels I had before, with some of the reclaimed long bits, a couple of reclaimed corners. So without having to dip into the fresh sprue really, because I'd already had 2 corners, I've managed to craft these 2 out of the bits. I haven't particularly got a use for a 2x5 at the moment, but that's way more useful than what it was, and I have got some ideas of what I'm going to run as units of 10. And then yeah, this is the 3rd 20-man Oathmark tray that I required. But yeah, that was it. I just thought I'd do an interesting little video on arguably one of the best kits that Games Workshop ever made. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.